Well, folks, welcome back to the Hillbilly Think Tank. I am Spencer Keck, the Hillbilly Think Tank, and I am the educated hillbilly. Y'all know that's not an oxymoron. Don't call me a moron. There have been educated, erudite, and emancipated hillbillies here in Kentucky ever since my ancestors came through the Cumberland Gap with Daniel Boone. Probably carrying a rifle, that one right there. But now, we know that here in this part of the world, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that's what it's all about, y'all. And I am your host, a Navy combat veteran, a public school teacher, former VA employee, and a combat veteran running for magistrate here in District 3. Now, next month, the United States of America turns 250 years old in July. 250 years. Think about what that means. The Revolution, the Constitution, the Civil War, 2 world wars, 2.5 centuries of ordinary people, farmers, miners, factory workers, soldiers, teachers, building something that had never been built before. The greatest democratic experiment in the history of the human race. And the man sitting at the White House right now is using that birthday to turn a stock trade. Now, the artists he is invited to perform at the party, well, they're walking out. Let's talk about it. On June 14th, which is both Flag Day and Donald Trump's birthday, a UFC fight is scheduled to take place on the lawn of the White House. Oh gosh, they're calling it Freedom 250. It's been billed as America's 250th anniversary celebration. Well, later this summer, from June 25th through July 10th, a 16-day festival called the Great American State Fair is planned right there in the National Mall. Big lineup: Martina McBride, Bret Michaels, the Commodores, Morris Day, and The Time, Young MC, Vanilla Ice, Flow Rider, CC, Music Factory. 16 days of music on the mall for America's birthday. Now, on paper, of course, that sounds like a great time, y'all, except it's falling apart. And the reason it's falling apart tells you about everything you need to know that there is to know about how this administration operates. Martina McBride dropped out. Bret Michaels dropped out. The Commodores dropped out. Morris Day and the Time Machine dropped out. You know, and the Young MC dropped out. Why? Because they say they were misled. They were told the event was nonpartisan celebration of America, full stop. Then they found out it was organized by Freedom 250, an organization affiliated with President Trump. Young MC posts online that performers were kept entirely in the dark about any partisan affiliation. Martina McBride said she was explicitly assured the event would be strictly neutral. Bret Michaels, and folks, Bret Michaels is not exactly a radical. You know, he said the celebration had turned into something divisive. These are country singers, rock singers, hip hop artists, people who make their living connecting with audiences across backgrounds and across every zip code in this beautiful nation. And they looked at this event and said, no, I will not put my name on this. When Bret Michaels, the man who sang, "Every rose has its thorn," is your canary in the coal mine for political overreach, boy, you have got to stand up, sit up, pay attention. Now, let's talk about this a second. These walkouts, these were something that everybody should have expected if they had been paying attention. We know that the money surrounding this event, because the artist walkouts are only part of the story, the money, that's the other part of the story. On May 12th, President Trump filed financial disclosure showing that he had purchased between $15,000 and $50,000 worth of stock in TKO Group Holdings, the parent company of the UFC, head of the White House fight on June 14th. He bought the stock. Then after buying the stock, what does he do? Well, he uses his power to set up a White House fight on the lawn of the White House. Think about that. He used the power and platform of the presidency, the White House lawn, the Oval Office, UFC fighters visiting on May 6th, a massive octagon being constructed on the grounds of the People's House to promote the event, which drives up attention, which drives up TKO stock prices, which makes Donald Trump richer. An estimated 4,500 people will watch the fight on the White House grounds. Another 75,000 up to 100,000 on giant screens at the Ellipse. That's a massive audience. That's a massive publicity. And the president, well, he owns stock in the company getting into all of it. Folks, this is the definition of using public office for private gain. And it's happening right in plain sight, wrapped in a birthday cake for the United States of America. Now, the money doesn't even stop there. As I'm sure you can imagine by now, would it ever? But let's just listen to what major news outlet has to say about this.
Planned events to celebrate the 250th anniversary of our nation are shaping up to be less about the country and more about President Trump himself. You may have noticed the White House South Lawn looks a bit different this week as crews were spotted erecting an octagon-shaped cage that will host a UFC fight next month commemorating America's 250th anniversary and coincidentally, President Trump's 80th birthday. The White House's 250th celebration plans hit another roadblock this week, and after at least 6 artists slated to perform at the Great American State Fair this summer either dropped out of the event or said they never signed on for an explicitly political performance.
So, not just me saying it, just so think about that. We got these artists dropping out of something they see now as they just explicitly partisan. But let's go back to the money doesn't stop there. That's where we're really need to look. Sponsorship packages for the White House UFC bouts, well, they're reportedly selling for as much as $1.5 million a piece. $1.5 million. To put your brand on a fight happening on the lawn of the White House as part of a supposed celebration of America's 750th birthday party. Here's the question nobody in the administration wants to answer. Where is that money going? Neither the White House nor the UFC has said. No public accounting, no transparency, no independent oversight. The president and TKO are deciding who gets in and who gets a sponsorship, and the process is entirely opaque. This is the same White House that couldn't tell you where the $1.8 billion anti-weaponization fund money was going. This is the same administration that dismissed tariff concerns while insiders made billions with a B. When he made announcements about the Iran situation, markets moved. When he paused tariffs, he reportedly bragged that it made billionaires richer. At some point, y'all, you have to stop calling it a coincidence. This is no coinky dink. Now, the Freedom 250 organization insists the festival is entirely nonpartisan. They point out their commission includes both Republican and Democratic lawmakers. Their CEO says the exposition aims to gather people from every state and every territory to celebrate the nation. Oh, yeah. Maybe so, but I'll take them at their word that that was the intention. But here's the problem. When your event is so thoroughly associated with one political figure that Martina McBride, Bret Michaels, and the Commodores feel that they were deceived into participating and feel strongly enough about it to walk away from the high-profile gig on the National Mall, y'all, something has gone wrong. You don't get to call it nonpartisan when the artists you book don't believe you. And you certainly don't call it a celebration when American president is buying stock in the companies being promoted. And those companies are being promoted at the event. So let me be direct. I'm a veteran. I served this country. A lot of people listening to this show served this country. Someone, they love someone else who did if they didn't serve. The 250th anniversary of America is sacred ground. It belongs to every American who ever bled for this flag, who worked hard at their job to give their kids a better life, paid their taxes, showed up to vote, and believed, sometimes against all evidence, that the republic is worth fighting for. It does not belong to a stock portfolio. It does not belong to a $1.5 million sponsorship package with no public accounting. And it definitely does not belong to an event so politically compromised that the musicians you hired feel that they were lied to and walk out the door. Now, using America's birthday as a backdrop for a market play, using the White House lawn, the flag, the pageantry of national celebration as props for personal enrichment, that's not patriotism. It is the opposite of patriotism. It is treating the country like it is a brand extension. George Washington could have been king. He chose to go home to Mount Vernon. He understood the office was not his. It was the people's. That the power that he had, it was not for his personal enrichment. That the republic was bigger than any one man's ambition. 250 years later, we've got a UFC octagon on the White House lawn. A stock purchase in the company, running the fight, $1 million sponsorship fund with no transparency, and a country music legend from Kansas walking away from the National Mall because she was told it was America's birthday party and found out it was something else entirely. Martina McBride saw it clearly. Bret Michaels saw it clearly. The Commodores saw it clearly. I hope the rest of America does too. Here in Hardin County, folks, we work hard for what we've got. Small business owners, factory workers, farmers, teachers, veterans on fixed incomes. These are people who play by the rules, who pay their taxes, who don't have a financial advisor timing their trades to their public announcements, who don't get to turn a national holiday into a business opportunity. They deserve a government that plays by the same rules they do. They deserve leaders at every level, from the White House on down to the magistrate's office, who understand that public service means serving the public, not your stock account, not your brand, not your donors, the public. When I'm elected to represent District 3 on the Hardin County Magistrate Court, I will never forget who I work for. It is not a sponsor. It's not a party. It is the people of this district. America deserves better than this for a birthday gift. 250 years is worth more than a stock trade. So y'all, tell me what you think. Let's look at here some comments. All right, so we got old guy in North Carolina saying, evening, Spencer. Evening there in North Carolina. I hope you're doing well tonight. I'm having a beautiful day over here today. All right, we got Donald Wirt. Trump says that he can't do his job without the security of the ballroom, and then hosts a UFC fight on the White House lawn. Hear, hear, Donald. Exactly. The most unsecure thing I can think of if you really need security, and yet here we go. That's absolutely right. Old guy in North Carolina says, I remember what a big deal the 200th was in 76. I'm old enough to remember the same thing too. Now, this disgrace, like everything else he touches, he ruined it. Yeah, I agree with you, old guy in North Carolina. He also, old guy in North Carolina also says, oh, there'll be another fake attempt so they can say, see how dangerous it is? Yeah, especially if they don't get enough sponsors there. Donald Wirt says, I also remember 1976, and I agree about another attempt. Yeah. Donald Wirt says, funny about their booking Martina McBride is that they are obviously didn't understand what her Independence Day was about. Amen. I absolutely agree with you there. Great one. All right, y'all. So let's look a little bit more at this report, and we'll move on.
By the way, the organizers have now deleted this post showing the lineup of musical acts. My goodness.
I don't know. Cindy King, who's the producer, she got the people to put them X's on the people's faces like that. Crazy.
What do you think about this? Did you show us a photograph of you walking?
Yesterday I took my little morning walk, and I was at the Washington Monument, and I do this little thing where Thomas Jefferson's statue at the Jefferson Memorial looks directly at the South Lawn, and so I turned, and there was the octagon, and it's just so jarring. I mean, it looks like a portal. Yeah, it's ugly, and it looks like I watched too many sites.
So, gotta agree with them. And another thing to think about is there's another thing that it really reminds me of. And we know that the president said he also wants to have two student athletes, male and female, from each state in this nation to come to this festival to compete.
Primrose Everdeen. Where are you? Come on up. Well, come on up.
Reminds me a lot of that. What do you guys think? Totally reminds me of that. Now, if you haven't been watching the news that much, this whole thing also seems to me to be very, very incongruous with what we have going on right now. I want to celebrate the 250th birthday also, since I as well remember the bicentennial back in 76. But when we've got the U.S. carrying out new strikes in Iran, I think there is obviously way more that we need to worry about. We also know as I reported last night, that a federal judge has ordered Trump's name to be removed from the Kennedy Center. And as Bernie Sanders says, America deserves a president, not a narcissist in chief who treats public office as a vehicle for self-promotion and personal enrichment. Here we go again tonight, talking about a lot more of it. So what is it that America is going to do? Are we going to put up with this? Are we going to become just one of the districts in the Hunger Games? Are we actually going to sit there and do something about it? Yeah, let's see that old guy in North Carolina likes that comparison. Donald said, I'm sure he'd love to have 2 children from each state. Yeah, he said he would. You know, absolutely. So, old guy in North Carolina also says, I saw Kenkel's posting that he'll make a speech. Whatever. Yeah, I'm sure he will. Summer, welcome to the show. So, all right, y'all. Hopefully, we got enough folks who are tired of the grifting and we can actually turn this around. I was looking at a report today that said the president's popularity is falling. He is now dead even in popularity and unpopularity here in Kentucky. Regardless of his popularity, we have to understand, even if you're popular, you cannot be allowed to grift. The grift is illegal. The grift is something we should not tolerate, no matter how popular our president is or is not. So something must be done. Doing nothing, well, that's just intolerable. We will not survive as a democracy and a republic. Y'all, this has been the Hillbilly Think Tank. Take care of each other, folks. That's what we got to do. We've got to love our neighbor as ourselves. Remember, we are our brother's keeper. We are our sister's keeper. And when we think of that and we remember that, we will not be divided. And we can live up to Kentucky's motto: united we stand, divided we fall. Remember, everyone deployed overseas, bless your corazon and have a great rest of the weekend. So far, I've been able to get out and hike, and the dogs have gone crazy loving it. We hiked Tioga Falls today with Wounded Warrior Project. That was a great, great hike. And one of the dogs even found
beans shipping cross country in refrigerated trucks. And third, they take all and cook than modern bush beans. In the 50s and 60s, convenience became king and TV did it. Soaking overnight, got laid But here's what they didn't tell you. Old-fashioned means it actually works. Your great-grandfather didn't grow scallop runners because they were tender. He grew them because when the bank foreclosed on farms across the